Mark Twain once said that laughter is mankind's most effective weapon, a lesson a group of young Muslims are taking to heart as they travel the country using comedy to break down cultural barriers. Harry Smith of NBC's Rock Center has their story.
Dean Obadiah, everybody.
Is there really anything funny about being a Muslim in America these days?
And it could be more challenging for us. They could give hurricanes Muslim names. That wouldn't help.
Dean Obadiah thinks so.
Turn on the news, Hurricane Mahmoud is coming. Run for your life, Mahmoud's a killer.
Dean is a comedian. He's also a Muslim, born in America.
A lot of Americans hate you.
I'm not sure how many actually hate me, but I know what you're getting at. The only way I know to counter it is by reaching out to people and trying to dispel the misconceptions, the lack of facts they have about American Muslims, about the religion itself.
We went along as Dean and fellow American Muslim comedians Negin Farsid, Omar Elba, and Maysoon Zayed toured across the American South in comedy clubs,
You just need to trust me.
on the streets,
How you doing, ma'am?
and in chance encounters,
The loudest voice.
doing their best to try to win friends and influence people. Pilgrims armed with punchlines in hopes of shattering a few stereotypes. They called their tour, "The Muslims Are Coming." Nearly half of all Americans admit to feeling some prejudice toward Muslims. In a funny way, the comics are fighting for their civil rights.
NBC's Harry Smith joins me now. I just love saying NBC's Harry Smith, one of our newer colleagues. So this is fascinating, but how do they steel themselves against the hurt, the slurs?
It's interesting because all humor is based in grievance. So they had plenty to say. And what's interesting was as they went down there, we were out on the street with them in a couple of small towns, and people would drive by and say some unpleasant things. But as Dean says in the piece, people very rarely bring that prejudice right to your face. So what they're trying to say is get to know us, get to know who we really are, and see if we can break down some of those prejudices and preconceptions.
At the same time, Harry, it's very hard to penetrate that kind of sort of subtle prejudice. And the people who might come to a comedy club or the people they might encounter on the street might be more open and more welcoming than some of the really, rock hard prejudiced people.
Well, and I think they're well aware of that too, and the fact that the tickets for free certainly didn't hurt, and all the places were packed. So these have got to be moderate to progressive folks who are coming to see these shows. So I'm not sure they weren't necessarily preaching to the choir. But at the same time, they'd go out and do these daily sort of events out in the streets in some of these small towns, just trying to encounter folks on the street and say, we're not here to, we're here so you can get to know us a little bit better. Ask us anything you want to ask. And quite honestly, there were some very, I think, fruitful and very spirited conversations that took place there. Maybe that's not the way to reach 300 million Americans, but perhaps it's a start.
And how do they support themselves? This is an expensive venture going across the country, even doing it on a budget.
Well, it surely is on a shoestring, and it's interesting because we asked where the funding was coming from, and interestingly enough, they've found common cause with a couple of gay activists who saw the prejudice that they had experienced in decades past and said, we're seeing some of the same thing with Muslims today, and so we're going to help you bankroll this. They, of course, hope to turn this into a film and some other kinds of things and amortize their costs that way.
Step by step, one person at a time. And don't miss Harry Smith's report tonight on Rock Center, 10 p.m. Eastern on NBC. And now